We are Stirling Autism Research, otherwise known as STAR, and this video aims to share some of our recent research. Today, we will be summarising a new journal article by Kirsten Corden, Rebecca Brewer and Ailey Cage called Personal Identity After an Autism Diagnosis, Relationships with Self-Esteem, Mental Wellbeing and Diagnostic Timing. More and more adults are seeking autism diagnosis, but we don't know enough about their experiences of making sense of who they are, their identity, when diagnosed in adulthood. As adults, many people have formed their identity and have an understanding of who they are and what their values and beliefs are. When someone gets a diagnosis, they need to figure out how that diagnosis fits into their sense of who they are. Psychologists have developed a theory called social identity theory, which explains how the concept of yourself is built from two identities, personal and social. Personal identity includes defining characteristics that make you an individual, unique, and lets you stand out from the crowd, giving the sense of I and me. Social identities allow you to find shared and similar characteristics among a group, creating a sense of we and us, and sets you apart from other groups. Self-esteem is the value someone puts on themselves. Previous research has found that a stronger sense of autistic social identity was linked to higher self-esteem and better mental well-being. Researchers haven't looked at autistic personal identity though. As such, this study aimed to investigate the aspects of personal identity, self-esteem and mental well-being and how these relate to autism diagnosis in adulthood. So how did we study this? 151 autistic adults from the UK completed an online survey. Most participants were female, educated to degree level and were employed. The average age of diagnosis was 26, and it had been on average 5 years since participants had received their diagnosis. The survey had questions about self-esteem and mental well-being. We looked at autistic personal identity in terms of two things. Firstly, autistic pride, and how much someone feels they are proud of autism forming part of their personal identity. And secondly, exclusion and dissatisfaction, how much someone feels they are dissatisfied or they reject autism being part of their personal identity. We also asked people how old they had been when they were diagnosed and how many years had passed since they were diagnosed. Finally, we had an open question where we asked people to share their thoughts on how receiving a diagnosis of autism impacted thoughts and feelings about themselves, both at the time of diagnosis and at the present day. We found that with increasing time passing since diagnosis, the less dissatisfied they were with being autistic. Age of diagnosis did not seem to matter, it was more about time passing. Additionally, those who reported greater dissatisfaction with being autistic also reported lower mental health, well-being and lower self-esteem. We also found that taking greater pride in personal autistic identity related to higher self-esteem. In participants' open answers, they talked about an adjustment period, where they took time to re-evaluate their identity and make sense of all the emotions they felt, both positive and negative, after diagnosis. Participants also talked about how diagnosis had helped them understand themselves better, and they felt they could be more authentic after their diagnosis. A lot also talked about how they didn't receive much support after diagnosis, but learnt a lot through the autistic people they connected with online. These findings show how time is important in helping people make sense of their artistic identity. Additionally, we showed how stronger personal autistic identity relates to more positive well-being and self-esteem. These findings indicate how vital it is to allow newly diagnosed autistic adults to explore what being autistic means to them, to be able to build connections with the autistic community, and also the need for more and higher quality post-diagnostic support, because lots of people have talked about the lack of support they received when they were first diagnosed. Thank you for listening to today's video. Please subscribe and click the bell button to be notified when another video has been made related to autism research. If you would like to learn more about our work, please follow us on Twitter and visit our website. You can also find a link to the full paper in the description below.